Hello, and thanks for joining us today at the Fast Company Innovation Festival. And today's session about how you can future-proof your business and your customer service. I'm Julianne Pepitone, and I'll be moderating today's discussion, which is in partnership with Square. Today, we're going to be talking about just the rapid changes in customer service, especially over the major changes of the last year and a half, and how your business can evolve to meet customers now and where they are going to be in the future so you never miss a sale. Joining me to discuss are Dave Rusenko, General Manager of E-commerce at Square, and Chris Duncan, co-owner and marketing coordinator at Honor Roll Clothing. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with me today. And I want to start by talking about what the idea of future-proofing means to you and to each of your businesses. You know, as the pandemic unfortunately made very clear, none of us knows what's coming around the corner. So when you're making your forward-looking plans, what does that look like for you? What kind of areas and categories and considerations are you thinking about? Chris, if you could start from the honor roll point of view.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. For us, since we are a direct-to-consumer business and we also have pop-up shops and we do several in real-life events as well as retail partnerships, for us it's very, very important to have contingency plans. 2020 taught us that we have to have a contingency plan. So we wanted to, for us in our particular industry being in clothing, we wanted to make sure we had a stellar, and I mean stellar, e-commerce presence. So if all else fails and we cannot do our in-person, our in real life events, we wanted to be able to sell clothes online and have that be one of our main resources when it comes down to our profit generating center. So what we
And
did.
Chris, did you have an e-commerce platform before and it was a matter of kind of making it more robust, or what did that look like pre-pandemic?
Yeah, so pre-pandemic, it was secondary to our events or even our retail partnerships. So it was actually on the third tier. And so what we wanted to do was come through and set up our e-commerce to reflect if it needs to be number one. And unfortunately, in 2020, it needed to be number one. And so what we did was really focus on our remarketing efforts and really ramp those up. We focus on our literally just our customer journey, and collecting emails and capturing leads really became a focus for us. So no matter what happened, we had those emails and we had a remarketing strategy in place to actually get those people that may have went to the website, added something to the cart, left, or may have purchased something, but you know, as the old adage says, it's just cheaper to keep a customer. And so instead of trying to go after a new one, so we wanted to put that in place.
Thanks. I'm glad that you mentioned the customer journey. I want to come back to that. I think it's going to be a big part of this conversation. But Dave, from Square's point of view, or what you're hearing from your clients as well, what does future proofing look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think in 2020, just with such disruptive changes, for a lot of businesses maybe had experience being online, but didn't have so much experience selling online, or certainly making selling online their primary channel. And so, we saw through a lot of 2020 and then into 2021, that was something that a lot of people were learning how to do for the first time. And I think what we're seeing now going forward for a lot of businesses, again, whether that's, a retailer or a restaurant or a service-based business, what we're really seeing is this trend of all the channels converging and coming together. And so the experience, I think before the pandemic, we thought of, oh, you're selling in person or you're selling online. And, now these days, those experiences just completely merge together. And so it's how do you offer that experience where someone maybe can browse online and then pick up that experience in the store when they come to see your clothing in person? Or maybe they buy online and then can come and have curbside pickup, right? So I think, for a restaurant, that might be, the ability to scan with a QR code and not just get the menu, but get the full ordering experience and then have that food delivered to your table. That's, effectively a digital experience that's brought in person. And so I think what we're now seeing is, as a lot of business now have that experience under their belt, saying, okay, I understand how to sell online now. Where are we taking this to next? And I think, going forward into 2022 and beyond, that's really where we see a lot of the focus is on the merging of those experiences.
I want want to talk about how you keep the cohesiveness of those experiences too. I mean, as you just touched on, Dave, when we talk about customer experience, that now means a heck of a lot of channels. It's brick and mortar, it's websites, it's social media, it's events, as Chris mentioned. So, how do you think about that multi-channel environment, especially as it relates to sales? Specifically, how do you give customers a cohesive brand experience, but then also correctly tailor each channel to maximize sales? Dave, if you could elaborate on that.
Sure. I don't know about you guys, but I just had an epiphany sort of in my own life the other day that I'm starting to gravitate towards businesses that let me not just email them, but message with them, right? So whether that's text message or whether that's, what it might be, I think it's really just one anecdote that demonstrates how much, especially in the form of customer communication, managing that life cycle, how much that's changing. Online, that used to be, email marketing and making sure that you had good life cycle campaigns. And now really it's making sure that across every touch point, you identify that customer, you're able to help them retain their loyalty rewards maybe, or their preferences. And you have the context of that relationship whenever you're talking with them. And so I think what's really important, if you're trying to set up your business to sort of future-proof it this way, is really to be very deliberate about the technology platform that you choose, something that can bring all the pieces together so that it really is, to your point, it really is cohesive and not just a bunch of different products that aren't integrated. Those cracks will start to show pretty quickly.
How important is, the kind of the brand voice throughout that as well? As you mentioned, now folks are, on Facebook Messenger with brands, sliding into Instagram DMs. Is voice an important part of it, do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, what we're kind of seeing, across all channels and really a lot of business types as well, is that, it used to be the trend in the past, and go much further back, the trend was that, consumers interacted with businesses on their terms, right? So classic example here, banking hours, right? The most inconvenient hours for anyone, but very convenient for the bank. These days, I think what we're seeing is that, that's completely flipped, and businesses now need to interact with consumers wherever they are, right? And to your point, whether that's over phone, because some people prefer a phone call, whether that's over text message, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, email, really wherever people prefer to be, that's where you need to go out to reach to them. And it is very important at that point to have that consistent brand voice, because you don't want it to appear completely fragmented. You want to make sure that you have the context of that conversation so that it's not like starting from fresh every single time on a new channel. And ideally, when that person comes in store, you're able to also maintain some of that context as well in person. So I think, it is becoming increasingly challenging as all these channels are just, fragmenting the landscape. And so that's where I think that, the big, important purchase decision is really what's the technology platform that brings that all together.
Thank you. And Chris, I want to put that initial question to you as well. How are you in Honor Roll thinking holistically about that multi-channel environment? Which channels are you guys in, and how are you maximizing those channels for sales, but also keeping the Honor Roll brand cohesive throughout?
Yeah, when I talked about that customer journey earlier, if the end goal is to sell product, and then even then from retention, then going into referral to make sure that our customers are telling people about us, what we love to do is, like you and David were speaking to, is keeping our voice the same and knowing that per platform, our tone may have to change. We may have to take a more serious approach when we are dealing with direct messages for customer service. If someone says, hey, my order didn't come, that's not a good time to start joking around like we would on Instagram. No, they just want to know where their tracking number is. They want to know where their package is. So understanding that, but even for
And
us.
Chris, is that, sorry to cut you off, is that changing that brand voice a little bit? I think it's such a great point. Is that more about the context of the specific scenario? Like you just mentioned, someone having a problem with an order, or is there a little bit of a different voice across the different channels? Is there like the Instagram voice and the Facebook voice, or is it more about the scenario?
Yeah, for us, we do it per scenario. So, and one thing too that we really love to do, and we learned in 2020, that to get someone to sell, we need to have more touch points. And so what we actually developed was just a lot of free programming that we could do digitally and bring on thought leaders in the space that may understand fashion, may understand styling, may even speak to how to put garments together, how to actually style those garments. And so we did that. We also added a piece, I know is so hot in the industry right now, but for podcasting. And then we even went further and started adding playlists for all of our collections. So not only do you see the garment, but we want you to actually experience the thought process behind it visually and, audibly.
I know. I mean, as someone who works in content creation, I know it's not just, you snap your fingers and have a podcast. That takes a lot of creative muscle, that takes investment. For you guys, is that kind of, building the content and hoping they'll come? Is that more of a brand play, or is that something that you're seeing translate directly to sales, or both?
Both. And the reason why we did it was literally we had to cut back on events. I mean, we're no exception, like everyone did. You had to cut out events, but you still had to have some type of interaction with your core audience. And you still had to beat the drum of, hey, buy something, but you couldn't just say, hey, buy something. So we wanted to actually create some steps. And like I always tell people, allow yourself to sit in the consumer driver's seat. What would you want a brand? What would you want to hear from a brand? And I know a lot of times we think like marketers or we think as business owners, but literally, what would we want a business to speak to? How would we want a business to speak to us? And then what would we want them to say? And so that was very important for us in 2020, because of course, like everyone else, I had the entire year scoped out, had the marketing plan. Oh, this is going to be a great year. We're going to finally be able to do all of these pieces. We have the capital for it. Then pandemic. So we had to make those adjustments. And how can we stay relevant while making sure that everybody stays safe? And yeah, that just became a very important task for us, because it became the task force.
And I love, if I could follow on to a point Chris made, because I really love that, is one of the things that, a lot of people are just discovering for the first time, maybe businesses that were traditionally in-person businesses and now selling online, they now have the contact information for all their customers. Absolutely. And that's something that a lot of people didn't have before. And that applies, to a retailer, it applies to a restaurant as well. And then the challenges, and I really love hearing Chris talk about this, is the challenge is then, okay, what am I going to put in front of my customers that isn't just buy something, right? Because everyone gets those emails that say buy something, right? And no one's going to pay attention to that. So, I think that's a challenge for a lot of businesses now. Okay, I could contact my customers. What do I say?
Yeah, and I would even say, for our standpoint, we had an email list comprised of thousands upon thousands of emails. And our emails were zip code, billing zip code, the literally whatever phone number they want to put in. Can you opt into this email? First name, last name. And so then when we started back over with lead generation campaigns, hey, can you opt into not only our email campaign, but also our text campaign became a huge point, a huge pivot point. Because now, instead of just saying, hey, buy something, we can say, check out our latest playlist, check out our latest episode. Hey, we were featured here. So we can give more of an update about the brand instead of it just being that hard sell, which it has its benefits and its negatives. One, that if you do a hard sell and somebody says no, that, all right, they don't want to buy anything. But also on the other hand, if you don't do a hard sell and someone keeps listening, now they're leaning in and they're tuned in for you as a brand. So what you actually think instead of what you produce in that moment. So we're not contingent. Our sales are not contingent on season to season anymore, because people are buying into the brand overall. So it was a gift and a curse during this pandemic to actually, it allowed us to take a step back and really think about how can we sell the brand instead of just selling a hoodie or a t-shirt or a jacket.
It's such a great point, because there's always a difficult balance there, right? There's a balance to walk between evolving your business and future-proofing it, but then also delivering an experience that feels authentic to your customers and to your brand. So, how do you go about that? If someone says, I want to evolve, I want to be where my customers are going to be tomorrow, But what kind of questions should they be asking themselves to make sure that they stay true to their brand? Dave, if you could start us on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think staying true to your brand is first and foremost kind of understanding what that is. For a lot of entrepreneurs, it starts off as an extension of themselves, and then over time they start to write down exactly what that means. But as we've been talking about now with this sort of explosion in channels and contact methods, I think again it's making sure you're true to your brand, but also making sure that you understand what are you saying that's going to attract people, what are you saying that's not boring, right? Sometimes that's the hardest thing, is putting something out there that's not boring. And again, I love where this conversation is going around defining your brand through playlists, defining your brand through other forms of content where you're adding value to people are engaging with that, but then really getting a big sense for what your brand is all about.
Chris, same question for you.
Yeah, it's crazy because we have had a brand, and when I say we, it's three owners of our brand, and we have had this brand for 11 years now. So we have to do a lot of evolving. I feel like a Pokemon in its final form right now. It's crazy. Which I even know that there's more growth to happen, and I'm very excited about that. We literally went from screen printed t-shirts to 100% cut and sew, literally buying the
Wow.
rolls of fabric. And so what that means is we went from a $25 t-shirt to a $130 hoodie. So we lost some people along the way. But I think what David said really hit the nail on the head, is being able to always have something to reference back to when it comes down to your brand, writing it down. I am a huge proponent of writing things down, because when we get in the stream in the flow, a lot of times we forget what it is that we're actually doing. You're just putting out fires at that point. You're just running with, like my grandma always says, like a chicken with its head cut off, because you're just trying to put out fires instead of actually remembering and recalling, why did I start this brand in the first place? What story did I want to tell? And always using that as a cross reference. When my partner creates all the designs and comes to me and like, hey, how should we market this? One side of my brain is, oh, well, A plus B equals C every single time. But then I get to ideate on how do we continuously tell our brand story. So with that, with the evolution of it, it's just telling, I like to think about it as not telling different stories, but telling deeper stories, because now we do have more resources. Now we can actually go to the factory and record our entire production process. Now we can go behind the scenes. We can get influencers to talk about the brand with their customer or with their audience in ways that we can't do it. So I think it's just more so evolving. Evolution as a whole just is more opportunities that you get to actually explore.
Absolutely. And Chris, was that hard for you guys as a brand, especially being, three owner creators? I'm sure you had some folks who were with you back in, 2010, buying those $25 t-shirts and loving it. And then, as you said, you evolved to a $130 hoodie. Not everyone is going to come along with you on that journey. And obviously that makes sense intellectually, but I could see how emotionally that might be kind of difficult. And I wonder if, some folks tuning in are thinking that too, like where I want to go in the future, talking about future proofing, not everyone might, make it on that journey with me. So, was that hard for you guys? And how did you frame that up in your mind as like, we might lose some folks, but this is the right way for our brand to go?
Yeah, it's starting with the end goal in mind and reverse engineering from there, and understanding that we may have to start here at the $25 hoodie that's matching sneakers that's coming out this weekend, but eventually this is where we want to grow the brand too. And so, yeah, it's difficult because you develop real personal relationships with these people that you see at your pop-up shops on the regular, that you get emails from, that you can send out a text message when something is being created. You can do a private preview with them, and now that person is no longer a customer of the brand. So it is par for the course, but also I would just encourage anyone to, you started your brand for a reason, continuously identifying your target audience and making whatever adjustments you need to make to that target audience. Because I think that that's, especially when I talk to business owners, that's always a piece that's missing. They think that they know, but you usually get, oh, who's your target audience? Millennials or everyone is usually the typical answer. But
The group.
oh my goodness. And being able to actually segment that audience. And you have to think like I started this brand at 25 years old. And so now 24 years old, at 11 years later, my tastes have totally changed. And of course,
Of course.
my core values are the same. And that's what we always try to go back to, that our core values as a brand are exactly the same. But with the maturing of life and different life stages, marriage, kids, you change. Second, third career, you change. Or, being able to sell a company, you change. So it's okay. And you want the clothing for us to reflect those changes. You want those. We don't want to create clothing that doesn't actually speak to our audience. When we created back in 2010 a shirt that said 9 to 5s are for those afraid to fly, that's because we were like fresh out of college. The economy was in the tanker, and fresh out of undergrad, and the economy was in the tanker. So what else can we do but start our own company? And so we just wanted to like create a shirt that was a huge like F you to the status quo. But then we really figured out that, oh, it's a really cool shirt. Don't know if we really believe the sentiments behind the shirt, or we may
You've
believe it,
evolved.
but
You've gone on the journey.
exactly. They're, young and dumb, but it's super excited to do it, and jumping off the bridge without a parachute, which is par for the course. Like you live, you learn, you make adjustments, and you just stick to it.
You've talked about changes in your life and in your customers' lives. I want to talk to you both about a little bit more of the macro changes, zoom out a little bit. What behavioral changes are you guys seeing in your customers? Whether it's what COVID specifically has taught you about customer experience, or even some kind of behavioral changes and trends that you saw, perhaps even pre-pandemic or continuing through the pandemic, even if it wasn't sparked by it. Dave, if you could start us on this one, what kind of trends are you tracking at Square?
Sure. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that there was a lot of trends that were existing before the pandemic that were really just accelerated by the pandemic. The shift to selling online, I think the pandemic accelerated that by probably 4 to 5 years, very, very quickly in a compressed moment of time. But I think, the other thing, the buzzword before the pandemic was omni-channel, and certainly we still believe, that that's the future. But I think, again, the consumer expectations now, people have started to expect that convenience and, the complete blurring and blending of experiences to be one experience. And everyone's expecting they could order anything they want for delivery, for pickup, for curbside pickup. You come into the store, you'll be able to, order something and ship it to your house. Really all of these experiences are kind of creating this one singular type of unified, interaction with the business. You might text the business and then you might stop it in person and it'll be the same person you were talking to. And so I think, what we're really seeing is that, again, selling online was dramatically accelerated by the pandemic. A lot of businesses are now selling online where they weren't previously. And now the focus is starting to become, okay, great. How do I make sure that my systems are connected enough that I could actually start to offer these unified experiences, these digital experiences in person, and in some ways, in-person experiences digitally, whether that's through, playlists or digital events or all these kind of things. So, I think that, the real challenge in being able to make that vision a reality, comes down to the systems that you're on, the technology that you're on. And it might seem kind of boring, who really started a business to think about the technology that runs their business. Luckily, that is something that I'm really passionate about. And we work really hard to make that a reality. But at the end of the day, it's more than just a technology platform. Really, this can be the lifeblood of your business, because once you're running your business digitally, your efficiency improves, your margins improve, your coordination and how you're able to talk to your customers improves. And so I think, these kind of platforms, if you really choose one that's properly integrated and cohesive, these platforms can be the thing that you run your business on top of. And then you don't need to think about, all these operations of your business. Then you can go do what you actually started your business for, which is what you love. So it can really free up a lot of your time, make your business more efficient, and ultimately help you cater better to your customers.
Thanks. And before I put that same question to Chris, Dave, you've talked a lot about kind of contextualizing the experience, making that a cohesive journey. Maybe if I'm talking with someone on Instagram, perhaps, if I move the conversation to another channel, if they already have that information, then that just makes it a smoother experience for me. Where are we in the life cycle on that? Do you think that that is a solidified expectation for the customer now that has happened more in the COVID era? Or do you think that's kind of early days?
I think that those experiences are starting to be much more common, much more solidified. One of the things that as an example that Square's launched recently is sort of a messages product that lets you interact with your customers, whether they come onto your online store, whether they text you, really wherever they are, and that shows up right in the point of sale. And so anyone basically could be interacting, whether face to face in person. That same person could just as easily, also be texting and messaging, with someone across channels. And so I think, especially as the tools evolve and get better to help you talk to and, interact with your customers across channels, that expectation just gets reinforced. To my earlier point, I even the last couple of weeks, I noticed myself suddenly gravitating towards working with people that I could just message, being much more convenient. So, I see it in my personal life as a consumer, and we also see it across a lot of the businesses that use Square.
Chris, how about you? What kinds of behavioral changes have you guys seen recently, whether it's kind of sparked by COVID or perhaps even behavioral trends you were tracking pre-pandemic that's affecting your business today?
Yeah, pretty much in the same vein as David was speaking to. For us, via those channels, customer service has become huge, and it has been one of the greatest ways to actually push somebody all the way down the funnel to the actual conversion, or even in retention, of making sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted, comes through our personal appeal of, hey, we can't see you face to face, or because we're literally stationed in Atlanta, but because we have customers outside of Atlanta, how can we make sure that they feel the love? So we were already doing it, but now we had to focus all of that intention and attention to actually doing that even across the board, even in a broader scope. So yeah, for us, it became customer service, but then also, again, like David was saying, understanding that we can use platforms to push someone all the way through the funnel, and that we can build that out. We can have a shop on the same page that they're seeing our social activity, and this is all within social media they can check out. So making sure that that's set up properly, so it just cuts out the barriers of entry, which, I mean, that's marketing 101, cut out all barriers as much as possible. You want it to be as seamless as possible, but I think the pandemic really showed us that, one, competition is high, but in just our space and close competitors. But then also, we want to, if our website is too slow and people are trying to go to our website, how can we eliminate that? How can we really cut back on the things that prevents people from buying from us?
Finally, for each of you, for the folks listening today who are inspired by this and want to future-proof their own organizations, what's your best tip or takeaway for either starting or hopefully continuing this conversation, in a way that makes their next steps kind of tangible and achievable? What should they be doing? What questions should they ask yourselves? Your best tip, Chris.
Yeah, I would definitely say just evaluate it again. Think like a consumer when it comes down to execution, but internally think about where you're currently at and have a real conversation, because some people can struggle with the reality of things, but have a real conversation with yourself, your partners, whoever it may be, of where are we at currently and where do we desire to be. And building out a system, because I guarantee you, if you're saying that you need to improve customer service, if you need to cut back on the time it takes for people to actually complete a sale, I guarantee you it's tools out there. It's people way smarter than you that can do it. And even if it's budget restraints, that's fine. But you can have someone come in and to evaluate whatever needs that you have, or crazy enough, just YouTube it. And it's a whole university out there for us on YouTube.
That's all right. The hashtag 2021. Dave, how about you? Your best tip for folks who are listening in and want to start or continue that conversation about future proofing. How should they think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, be cognizant of the fact that you have this new asset, which is very powerful, which is being able to be directly in touch with your customers, sort of all of them, the ones that come visit you in person, the ones that purchase online. The most important thing is just what's next. What are you going to say to them? How are you going to engage them? And do it in a way that's not boring, because we all get hundreds of spam emails every day, with, look at me. And the reality is that's just not going to break through anymore. So get creative. How is it exactly that you're going to engage your customers? What can you do to help them interact with your brand, even when they're not actively ready to purchase something? And then, how do you continue to engage them over time? And then do eventually bring them back, to convert them down the bottom of the funnel, when it's time for them to purchase. So, a powerful new tool, being able to be in direct contact with your customers across lots of channels, and a power that needs to be used responsibly, but also, again, in a sort of seamless, coordinated fashion to make sure that your brand voice is consistent, and is constantly getting out there.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
if I could, David, I love what you said about understanding how that journey needs to look. And one thing that I do think that unfortunately us as business owners don't typically think about, sometimes you just have to do things that are not going to yield you a direct ROI or return on ad spend, and it's okay. Have a appreciation day or a appreciation discount code or something that the customer feels to love. Like that's how you break through the noise of literally just saying, one, what do you actually want to hear from us? Which is mind blowing how many people don't actually ask their consumer, hey, what type of emails do you want to receive? Do you just want to know about promotions, or do you want to hear about me and the kid, or what is it that you want to know? And then also too, it's okay to, like, for us yearly, we do a barbecue. We have clothes for sale, but that's secondary. We just want people to come out and have a good time and just know that we are in the Atlanta market and that we're just here to love on them. And that's it. And we love them for loving us. And we just want to feed them and have a good time. And so, yeah, it's secondary to selling clothes, but we do that even though it's not a necessary cost beneficial event. It's okay, and because it's going to, we're meeting new people, we're connecting with them, and they're now, that's brand recognition down the line when they see Honor Roll again.
Well, we'll have to wrap the conversation here, but just really want to thank our panelists and our audience for being with us. For those tuning in, I hope you enjoyed hearing Dave and Chris's insights about how they're future-proofing their businesses. And also, I'm hoping that you leave here today with new ideas, new inspiration about how you can reach your customers today and also tomorrow. If you're interested in rewatching this session, it will be posted on demand shortly in the Innovation Festival library. Again, I'm Julianne Pepitone, and on behalf of Fast Company and Square, thanks so much again for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.